between the two of them.
The inside of Coates.
Parker gets too heavily involved.
And that's Whitehead and Coates.
Hello everybody and welcome to the AGON by AOC MX-5 Championship powered by VRRC. My name is Jack Oliphant and I'm joined alongside me as per usual by Dave Marshall. Dave, how the devil are you?
Yeah, very, very good. You say it as per usual, but you do the Tuesday or the Thursday night, sorry, the TCT with Annie McEwen. So I'm not as regular as usual, but yeah, back in the comms box for the MX-5, and what a track it is! One of my favourites.
Yeah, I still think you've pipped the mark on the most amount of features on VRRC ahead of Andy, though, haven't you? You must be, you must be easily be on triple figures by now. Right, we are talking about MX-5's fixed setup car, of course, in this championship, and this is the first time in a very long time that we've visited a track that you may not have heard of. Vallelunga. I do have some facts and figures about it, so we'll get to all that in a couple of minutes' time. But of course, this is the fourth round in the entirety of the championship. We've got Red Bull Ring after this and Virginia full course. So we've gone away with the national circuits in Britain of Donington and Brands Hatch. We are now well and truly in the European lovely city of Rome. Vallelunga, 2 driver classes, gold and silver, of course. And, well, plenty to be catching up on, Dave, really, isn't there? There's always the last time out, the results of the last time.
Yeah, there is, and you know what? Jack Smith put on another one of them performances where it just appeared he was a little bit unstoppable. Fantastic battle between Eric Axelsen and Jack McIntyre. So much race and respect there on track, and some of the best racing I think we'd actually seen. So a really good performance in gold class. Meanwhile, we go into the silver category, and it was yet again the same top 3 in silver that was seen in the other previous rounds. Brad Smith coming out on top this time, but you know what? Nathan Blank is starting to show a little bit more the form that he has in all the practice sessions. So let's hope that's an onward, sort of an onward momentum into this round, and we might actually see an even bigger battle developing in that silver class.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And of course, driver of the round was Eric Axelsson. And I hope you like the fancy new graphics as well. They're looking very sharp. Thank you to VRRC for supplying them. But actually, the reason why I actually passed over to you just then, Dave, is because I had a mind blank and forgot what happened at Brands Hatch. So I thought, oh, you probably remember. I'll pass it over to you. But now it's just recalled to me. That battle...
It was hard to forget.
Yeah, no, that battle between McIntyre and Axelsson was, I think we even put it on social media this week, a quote from you saying it was one of the best sim races you've ever seen. And there were 2x2 around Brands Hatch for about, I don't know, 5 laps in a row at every single corner.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what drivers sign up for. Yes, we all want wins, but to go and race with so much respect near another person that you know isn't just going to run you wide into gravel or, you know, just punt you on into that corner to get the undercut. That is what, for me, racing's about. And honestly, I bet both of them had a real smile on their face, regardless of the fact that it was actually Jack Smith who got the win.
Yeah, Jack Smith will be the driver with the biggest smile on his face, I imagine, because he is still in the lead of this championship. I say still, actually. He was a recovering driver, I believe, and he is now in the lead of the championship. 79 points, 2 ahead of Jack McIntyre. So that gap right at the top, very, very close. And remember, we are now just over halfway through the season, so this is when we really start to see the fights and the mental games start to come into the fray as well. Eric Axelsson in 3rd place, but again, the past week or week and a half, he started to show that little bit of bite that he's needed to score the extra points, which is lovely to see. And he also got driver of the round because of that improvement in his racecraft that we saw at Brands Hatch. So looking forward to seeing what Eric brings out tonight. Nicky Taylor and Simon Reed, very close for 4th place at the moment. Quite a way off the top 3, but still had their own little battles to fight for. And Carl Felvers actually in 36 points. I've overlooked him slightly in my notes, but he is right there for 4th as well. So but hopefully Taylor, Reed and Felvers all go very strong. Of course, Nicky Taylor's not here tonight, but we'll update you that in a couple of minutes. Right, very quickly on the silver category. 82 points for Brad Smith, Mick Sutton on 78. Very close at the top there as well, separated by only 4 points in the silver. Nathan Blank, again, a bit like Eric Axelsson, just bringing up the rear. It's about the same gap, actually, as well. Just bringing up the rear, but still right there in the fight. Every possibility that he can close the gap, even in one single evening. Paul Laramie, quite far ahead of Simon Thorpe at the moment, but he's very close to John Jones for the fight for 5th place. And Kenny Press as well, the reverse grid king, it seems, in the previous couple of weeks. They're in 7th. Right, we'll go through the prizes and everything in a second, but first of all, we're going to take you through a hot lap of Vallelunga in an MX-5.
So here we are across the line for round 4 of the MX-5 Cup, powered by VRRC at sunny Vallelunga, and it's completely flat through turns 1, 2 and 3. Curva Grande, you can see 5th gear, about 115 mile an hour, completely flat, and where slipstream is going to play such a big part, because this braking area down into turn 4 is a great overtaking opportunity. Down to 3rd, getting the nose tucked in and super quick back to full throttle out of turn 5. Another crucial corner because you can see the length of this straight. If you're not that fast coming out of that last corner there, then it could really hinder you going down towards this really fast right, left, right section. 4th gear on the limiter. For me, not much point really changing up to 5th there. Down to 3rd for the right-hander here, turn 11. Really hard for a throttle pickup because it's super blind because of that big rear view mirror. And then down to 2nd gear for the tight hairpin. Look at the amount of lock I'm having to try and put on the car, and then try not to drift the car out, but also getting as early on the throttle as we dare. Then through turns 13 and 14, you don't want to run 13 too deep, otherwise it makes 14 too tight there. So stay middle of the road, open 14 up nicely, take it just about flat. You can see we lose the back end a little bit going into the last corner here at turn 15, and that is a lap of Vallelunga. Make sure you tune in on Tuesday nights on VRRC's YouTube, and make sure you give this video a like and subscribe.
And we're back in the northern hills of Rome. Oh, I wish we were really there, Dave, because it's a stunning location, isn't it, Vallelunga? And it's a very fun track by the looks of it. You think you found a little gem, to be honest, in the circuit, haven't you? Because it is a lovely flowing sort of track out there for these drivers to get a grip with.
And especially in these MX-5, it's sort of for me, it's quite like almost a big grown-up go-kart track really for cars. And for me, it's a track that has a little bit of everything. It's wide enough to still battle very, very well. But like coming out of this last corner here where Eric Axelsson, you're trying to get a good drive out of that straight. You can see he actually set the lap up there. Purposely went a little bit wide to then start his fast lap. And you can see super long stretch. And even though this is a right into a left-hander here, it's still completely flat. It's wide enough. And as I was talking to you during the hot lap, you will see a lot of drivers tucking in that slipstream, and you come down towards this double right-hander here, which is crying for a late lunge up the inside. There's not really a lot any driver can do about that, apart from tucking in and then getting the drive out of this corner and getting in that slipstream again for exactly the same move back. So for me, it's actually a track that I think we'll see a lot of overtaking on, unlike maybe the tracks like Brands Indy. That is a lot harder to get that overtake done on.
Yeah, well, a lot of drivers were trying their best around Brands Hatch GP, weren't they, and putting on a show, so I don't imagine they need any extra invitation. But they obviously, the extra width that this circuit provides will be that little bit of invitation. If you've never heard of Vallelunga, then I don't entirely blame you, to be honest. It's a little small track, as I mentioned, in the north of the Roman hills, about 45 minutes away from the airport. If anybody's ever been to Rome, then you sort of know how roughly where it is, I suppose. Apparently it used to be a little dirt track, Dave, basically a dirt oval. A lot of people have actually said that it probably throws back to the old Roman days of charging chariots around, obviously their ovals and jousting, or whatever the Romans used to do. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, and then obviously it's developed, and as I mentioned, it opened in 1951, and since then, pretty much every year, it's actually just developed and developed and developed. What we're racing on here is pre-2005 Vallelunga, because they added that extra hairpin that you were mentioning before we went into the broadcast, Dave, where they sort of shoot off left, and it's almost reminiscent of that sort of extra bit of Donington in the national circuit where they go off to the left and do a hairpin. But that was built in 2005, so realistically what we're seeing here is probably the 1990 sort of era.
We must point out, Jack, that we did give Tom the broadcaster a rather good laugh when I did say it goes up and adds a hairpin, because basically the whole track is hairpins and straight, so he had a good chuckle there. And so
he enjoyed that one, didn't he?
Yeah, he did enjoy that one. So it's nice to make Tom laugh once in a while. But yeah, you know what? For me, it's going to be such a good track. And this where Paul Zanetti is coming up to here, this intersection, that left-hand hairpin, you can see how wide he had to set that up to get the cutback on that hairpin. That for me is prime time position. If you commit to coming up behind the previous corner and get the run, and you put it up the inside of there, there's nothing to really drive it and do in retaliation for that. So a really good overtaking opportunity, but you have to commit to it early.
Yeah, you absolutely do. So as Paul Zanetti looks to be on a fairly quick lap. Eric Axelsson has actually gone 2 purple sectors. He's just come across the line to finish the 3rd sector. It was an improvement on the 3rd, but I think the lap time was an improvement, as we're now looking at Jack McIntyre a little bit further back. Zanetti obviously covering for Nicky Taylor this time round. That's worth mentioning, Dave, isn't it? Because obviously Nicky's on holiday. He's had various drivers have to sort of cover for him over his various championships on a Tuesday night and a Thursday night. Today is the turn of Paul Zanetti, and it's lovely to see him sporting Nicky's livery, and I know he's got some love in the YouTube chat already.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely can't miss the car, can you? No, Paul likes a bright livery. I don't know if you remember back to Super Touring, Jack, but that purple and green, in the touring car trophy. But in the Super Touring, he also had that very bright green Volvo as well. So Paul likes a bright car, so he's looking quite fitting in Nicky Taylor's very illuminous MX-5 there. Yeah,
for sure. I think it was, in the Star Wars film, it sounds like I'm going on a bit of a rant here, but Star Wars film, I think it's Samuel L. Jackson, in the second film, they have a big sort of fight in amongst sort of almost Roman Colosseum and everything, and he said he wanted to figure out who he was. He wanted to see himself in the battle, so he made George Lucas give him a purple lightsaber, and he was the only one with a purple lightsaber. And it's a similar thing, isn't it? People want to have a bright liveried car, so in all the melee, they can find themselves on the broadcast and see how they're getting on, and obviously all their fans as well. So yeah, it's nice to see a little bit of an individualism.
for a person who's never seen Star Wars, that's completely lost on me.
Well, there you go. You know what a lightsaber is, I'm sure.
but you know what, actually, I think, and this could be a bit controversial me saying this, but actually, if you watch a lot of the karting races, or the front row of the mini challenge or something like that, because everyone tries to go bright colours like fluorescent pinks, fluorescent yellows, bright blues, they actually, on a full grid of them, start to blend in, and that just one black car or one white car. I don't know whether you remember the Subaru Levorg that BMR made, and it was just all black with just white BMR up the side. It actually stood out more than the cars that were absolutely plastered in graphics.
Yeah, very true. It's just whatever contrast, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tomo Fowler just put on the Discord, what on earth are we chatting about? I'm talking about jousting, and I'm talking about Star Wars. Yeah, we should really focus on what's going on in front of us. Eric Axelson on pole position, but Jack Smith is starting to return the favour. Sector 1, he's just gone green, and obviously Jack McIntyre is in 3rd place. There's going to be a big upset the day that those three are separated by any other driver. And really, we don't really see it happening in the next couple of rounds, do we, I suppose?
We don't, but wait for the reverse grid, because then it really does start to shuffle up a little bit. And this is where I think it's fair to say Eric Axelson just seemed to come on and form a little bit more. Hopefully that's not going to be a curse to the commentator, but he seemed to come on a little bit better at Brands Hatch and was starting to pull them results in that he was struggling to find early on in this season. So his racing seems like it's starting to actually turn a bit of a corner now, and you can see there is definitely nothing wrong with the pace that Axelson's got here tonight.
No, for sure. Although Jack Smith is going a little bit quicker. He's closed the gap. He's halved the gap, but it's still only a 10th away. It still is a 10th away from Eric Axelson. So not really close enough to really be upsetting Eric. And like you mentioned, he's starting to come on a bit of form, and his racecraft has improved as well as his overall pace, which we've always seen his overall pace has been on par with Smith and McIntyre. But the fact that he can now start racing and start getting in there, and we're almost expecting him to make a little bit of a move or make a few things happen, aren't we, in the race, which we didn't really see before. So it's quite refreshing.
Yeah, it is definitely. And you know what? I think he's been one of the drivers that's, I think, fair to say, been one of the most unlucky. Just a bit of wrong place at the wrong time. Have cars that's, been spinned across the grass, and it always just seems to be Eric's car that's involved in it. So it's kind of nice that his pace is actually starting to represent in some of the results that he's getting as well. Saying that, McIntyre definitely didn't make that easy last time out for him with some of the best racing I think we've seen, as we've already covered. Nathan Blank, I touched upon this when the results popped up as well. Nathan just seems to have the pace in the car and then gets into the race, and yet again, through being unlucky or just being in the wrong place at the wrong time, just hasn't managed to string them laps together to give him the position. But I think Nathan Blank started to turn a bit of a corner as well, and yet again here tonight, qualifying currently P1 in silver class. So yeah, very impressive. Paul Laramie putting a solid effort in there as well, not too far off the back of Brad Smith as well.
It's quite nice, really, that we've come to this sort of unusual. I want to say unusual track. It's probably a bit unfair, actually. Apparently, it's the most modern track in Italy. Apparently, according to the updated figure. Apparently, this is the most most modern track in Italy. That's going off the website that I've been reading, which normally is very reliable. But it's quite an individual track, obviously. But a lot of drivers haven't driven it. Whereas VRRC, I think it just tends to be the series that we've been running over the past couple of months, really, that we always do the UK national tracks or the likes of Laguna Seca and things like that, where drivers get used to it, don't they? You get used to have to drive Spa and have to drive Donington and Silverstone, all those sort of things. Duxton's probably the most unusual one that we've had, really. Whereas here, it is an opportunity to throw the cat amongst the pigeons. Everyone pretty much has to come and learn it essentially from scratch. I mean, that's just an estimation. Some people might have driven it previously, but I'm guessing that most of them haven't. And really, it's a clean slate, isn't it? It's whoever picks up the track quickest. And I have to say, one driver who's just picked it up very well is in 8th place right now. We're on board. Kyle Felvis has gone purple, Sector 1.
That is very impressive. I'm just looking at the timing sheet going, yeah, that is a very, very fast Sector 1 there indeed. Whether or not this is at all, he managed to find a bit of that toe that we were referring to, so managing to get that slipstream behind another driver. So here he is now, coming across the line. There's 2, 3, 4. Will it see him go any higher up? Oh, so he has beat his time. He's gone up to 6th place, but maybe not quite the potential of what was left in that lap time there. It is a very tricky lap. So you've got this very fast first sector, and if you hook that up, you go into that tight, twisty section towards the end of the lap, where it's all about patience and making sure when you commit the throttle, you are committed and you don't have to bail out on it and get back off it. So going into there with a green delta that might be 0.3, 0.4 of a second up, it makes you want to get on the throttle earlier and not throw that lap away, but can actually damage you a lot.
I remember when I was racing in the G40s, I used to love looking at the Delta, and in fact, it actually distracted me quite a lot of the time. So my race mechanic, Ben Highland, when he was in charge of the team, he actually used to lean in the car, turn my data off, my Delta off, and strap me in so tight in the car that I couldn't quite reach it to turn it back on, because I was so obsessed with looking at it. And as he said, the problem with it is the fact that you end up just focusing on the lap, you're focusing on the time rather than focusing on the lap. And especially in something like testing or something, that can be really detrimental because you're not really learning the flow of the circuit and not trying to feel what's quickest and all that sort of thing. So, yeah, people can get carried away. One driver who's not getting carried away right now is Eric Axelsson. He's working just as hard as ever. He's not resting on his laurels because you know Jack Smith is still forever closing the gap on him. It's only a 10th and a half. It did elongate to 2/10 a couple of laps ago, but Eric has gone green in Sector 1 again, and he's still on a hot lap, as well as Brad Smith, who is he's third in class, Dave, but realistically, with 3 gold drivers in between himself and Nathan Blank and Mick Sutton, it's not going to be ideal for him. Paul Zadatechi is one of those gold drivers, and he's on a green sector too, so he can see his time improved even further, but the top 3 are all putting in green sectors.
Yeah, this is going to be a bit of a shootout, isn't it, on this last lap? We've got Eric Axelsson, who has set a very, very good Sector 1 indeed. Jack Smith set a very good Sector 2, and actually Axelsson has passed the line now, so he hasn't managed to beat his time, but only just. So previous lap was a 23.853, and his best lap in quali has been a 23.846. So we're talking absolute minute margins. Jack Smith comes across the line on a 23.893, so half a tenth away from where Axelsson was, so leaving it at the very last second to put a decent lap in there. And McIntyre crosses the line third, a little bit off, I think, where he would like to be, realistically 4 tenths back from P1 Axelsson. So a very, very good sector, and unfortunately, actually, I've just sort of saw that. Oh no, sorry, that was my mistake. I thought Jack Smith had done a purple sector on his cooldown lap, but that was his 3rd sector. So Jack Smith looks like he has got a very, very quick last sector in the books, and that there, if a driver now goes back and looks at the data, that's the sort of thing that can play on a driver's mind when he goes into the race.
Yeah, but if they were sensible, they'd probably realise that it's a slipstream would be such a big deal here at Vallelunga that they won't really mind too much. Right, we're going to go into a very quick advert break for one of our sponsors, but after that, we'll be straight in with an interview with our pole sitter, and then, of course, race 1.
At SmartFi, we do things differently. It starts with our 100% buyback guarantee. When you buy SmartFi token on the Smart Portal and hold it for a year or more, we'll buy back your token at the price you paid for any reason under the sun. You can borrow cash with our collateralized crypto loans or earn up to 13% interest on your holdings. SmartFi unleashes the true potential of cryptocurrencies, and there are so many reasons now more than ever to get involved. Join us today at smartfi.com. Grow your wealth and secure your future with simple, smart, and safe finance.
And we are back in the room, but Dave, of course, we've got a pole sitter to talk to.
Yes, we do indeed. Eric Axelsson, a fantastic lap there, and consistently very, very quick as well, putting a P1 on the grid. But Jack Smith on that very last lap made it count then and put a lap in within half a tenth. How much does that play on your mind now going forward into the race, or you just concentrate on the fact that you were the fastest driver there on the grid?
Well, I know that Jack is fast, and he's going to be as fast as me. Just hope to get away in the start, not throw it away.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to give you a curse of the commentator, it's called. I don't want to give it, but previous round out, you know, you were starting to find a little bit of form in that fantastic battle with Jack McIntyre. You found also a lot of form in the touring car trophy that will run on the Thursday night. Is this the momentum that you're going to carry forward into this and, you know, use that sort of momentum to drive away, like you said?
Well, I sure hope so. I'm still like learning my racecraft, and yeah, I hope for a better result at today. I want to win.
Well, I think it's fair to say that there's definitely no grumbles with the pace that you've got in the car. Good luck today, Eric. Fantastic job on putting a P1 in qualifying session, and hopefully we'll be talking to you after race 1.
Thank you, Dave.
And there we go, Jack. Eric Axelsen just wanting to get his head down and get away. The wish, I think, of any driver who puts it pole on the grid.
I was going to say, he was probably fed up with all the media duties that he was needing to do that as well, didn't he? He wanted to get in, focus, and get gone. But, as I just mentioned before we went to the advert, though, Dave, realistically, there's a big slipstreaming opportunity down into T3, isn't there? Yeah. Where the opportunity's on for not only Smith, but McIntyre, Sutton, even Nathan Blank. If the slipstream is as powerful as you've mentioned it before, we could be seeing a lot of moves and potentially a little bit of spills amongst the thrills as well. We're hoping that everybody keeps it a little bit sensible.
Yeah, I think that is definitely going to be playing on Eric's mind there. But saying that, Jack Smith, even though he's in P2 and he's behind Axelsen, if he can't get tucked in and get in that slipstream, Jack Mack sat there who might have double slipstream. And then Jack Smith will be thinking, well, I need to get past Eric, but also McIntyre is going to try and get up the inside of me or the outside. So it's one of them where, and sometimes sort of foresee the way a race start's going to go. But this one, I've got absolutely no idea. Let's face it, turn 1s, 2 and 3 are a little bit open, fast, no braking required. It's when we get down to that bottom right-hand, double right-hander, I've got not a clue which driver's going to come out in front there.
I was going to say, you normally have a knack for this sort of thing, don't you? You can seem to guess it for some reason. But no, I mean, that's what we love about motorsport, though, is the fact, or any sport really, is the fact that it's so unpredictable. And as I said, there's not only the battle for what we sort of colloquially call the platinum class, where it's Axelsen, Smith and McIntyre, but of course there's the silver drivers who have really performed very well in the likes of Mick Sutton and Nathan Blank, out qualifying Felvis, Reed and Zanatachi, who of course are all representing gold classification tonight. Zanatachi obviously replacing Nikki Taylor, so keep an eye out for the bright yellow and black car. Right, lights are coming on, engine notes are rising, and for the first time here this evening on the AGON by AOC MX-5 Championship, we are racing. Axelsen gets a good start. I think Smith got a little bit of wheel spin, much to the delight of McIntyre, and of course Axelsen, who can breathe just a touch easier as he sees second place being attacked, really, by third place Jack McIntyre, who we're looking at right now. McIntyre trying to get his intentions shown early to that inside, but Smith pulls across, and they're almost swapping sides as they go down towards the braking zone, and there is a huge incident, as we thought there might be, and it's the silver, but not only the silver leaders, but the gold leaders as well. Smith and McIntyre being taken out by a flying Nathan Blank.
Yeah, I'm going to put my neck on the line here. I hope I'm not wrong in saying this. For all it was Nathan Blank flying across the grass, I don't believe he was actually the cause of it there. I didn't catch which driver it was, but there appeared to be a driver who maybe moved slightly on the brakes there down towards the right-hander, and that then speared Nathan Blank over the grass. And then unfortunately it looked like Jack Smith was the collection point later on in the corner. Jack Smith probably saw that on his car radar, but at the point of when seeing that, there'll have been nothing Jack Smith could have done to avoid that, unfortunately. I'd imagine the pack looks to me relatively closed up here, so I reckon I'm going to call it and say I reckon it will be safety car in this lap. I mean, I tell you what, Mick Sutton found his way up into P2. Kyle Felvis, the main story for me, P2 in class in gold. And here we go, safety car, I believe, is going live. There you go, Eric Axelsen has now gone. And oh, Mick Sutton had a little break there towards the hairpin. That was a little bit naughty. Maybe Eric Axelsen definitely had gone at that point. Brad Smith doing a brilliant job there in P2 in class. And Simon Thorpe from the back of the grid has found his way up to P3 in silver class. Go on, Simon Thorpe.
Yeah, it's almost like it's a reverse grid apart from Eric Axelsen right at the front, isn't it? Simon Thorpe has got his teammate behind him. I'm sure he probably won't hold up Jack Smith if he can avoid it, but he does look like he's going defensive.
Oh.
It does look like he's going defensive into T3, and I'm sure the Smart 5 guys watching the stream won't be keen about that, and there is a turnaround for Brad Smith. Brad Smith ended up with the Smart 5 car, which I think was Simon Thorpe having contact and just being sent a little earlier. But this is the problem, Dave, isn't it? The fact that you get so much overspeed with a little bit of slipstream that you sort of brake where you think you should, but actually you're carrying about 10 miles an hour more. You need to brake about 5 yards earlier, and that's off into the gravel for Kenny Press as well. The kitty litter hasn't been kind to him this evening as McIntyre slips down as he's being overtaken. In fact, no, he's trying to do the overtaking of Paul Laramie, but Laramie holding around the outside and then still on the inside for the slower left hairpin, and I think Laramie's going to get the drive.
I believe you're right. First time, Paul Laramie was behind McIntyre going towards that hairpin, and I believe he managed to actually go up the inside through the right-hander and hold it off through the second hairpin. So Paul Laramie with a fantastic job here at the moment in P6 at the moment. John Jones, unfortunately, there in the wall on the right-hand side. So watch this. This will be the interesting thing. So Paul Laramie has gone a little bit wider. McIntyre has got the undercut up the inside of Paul Laramie. Now let's see how much of an impact that slipstream really has going down this straight. Already, look, going for a move up the inside of Jack Mack. That'll force McIntyre wide a little bit. Paul Laramie is side by side at the moment, so you can see he almost had that slipstream a little bit too early, I think it's fair to say, Jack, where he caught him on the corner as opposed to after the corner. So very difficult to try and judge when to put that move on to make it stick.
Yeah, McIntyre trying to drive up towards the inside of him though, and this potentially will be McIntyre's opportunity to make the move stick as they go through the flowing left-right. You mentioned in the track map, in the hot lap, sorry, that you have to be brave to go through there too wide. And, well, Laramie was brave, but it didn't come off, did it, that time round? And I was actually going to question, potentially, as Smith gets past Mick Sutton into P3, I was going to question maybe, was Laramie, did he go wide by accident in that last corner, or was it on purpose because he knew the slipstream was going to be so powerful so he could get back ahead of McIntyre? Might be those sort of mind games, that sort of thing tonight, really, that we have to keep that in mind, because a lot of drivers, they might be smarter than we think. Racing drivers are typically very dumb, as we know, Dave, but tonight we could be seeing some smart tactics.
Yeah, we definitely could, and I think we're going to have to see them tactics played out very shortly, with Felvis under a lot of attack from Jack Smith, the same as Nathan Blank here, battling with Simon Reed. Nathan Blank with an exceptional launch out of that last corner, but Simon Reed will be now in the slipstream. This is where he's going to tuck round the right, keep as minimal steering lock as possible, and get down to this right-hander where we see Jack Smith putting his nose up the inside of Kyle Felvis. Kyle Felvis trying to go around the outside. That's a very, very brave move indeed. He'll be in the slipstream now, and I tell you what, if he can play this well, he might actually put himself side by side but force Jack Smith a little bit wider. He hasn't. He's backed out of it early. He's tucked into that slipstream. Will he go for a move down here into the right-hand hairpin? Doesn't look like it. I think Kyle Felvis here is going, you know what? I'm in P3, a good position ahead of Paul Zanetechi and McIntyre. This is good championship points for me. Let's go with Jack Smith and try and gap the field. This could be smart driving by Felvis. Yeah,
speaking of smart driving, if anybody out there is offended and wants to abuse me in the YouTube comments, I was joking about racing drivers being dumb, by the way, don't worry. I'm aware that some of them are quite smart, only a few, but yeah, they're there. Anyway, Carl Felvis, as you mentioned, in third place. And to be honest, he's never really going to probably beat Smith, is he, Dave? Realistically, but he can hold on to him for as long as possible, use his slipstream to pull away from the rest of the field. Mick Sutton behind him is comfortably in the lead of the silver category. Now, I'm not entirely sure if we look back and have a look at that incident with Nathan Blank. What I will say is the only other driver that I saw, or the driver that started next to him, shall we say, on the grid, was Mick Sutton. So I don't know if there was a movement under braking, whether Mick Sutton was maybe one of those parties. We don't know. It's speculation. I can't really put too much blame on him. But right now, he's leading the silver category, and obviously the traditionals will be dealt with afterwards, put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, all I'm saying is I didn't see which car it was, so my apologies. And also, I did say I put my head on the block because it is very hard to have a sort of an instant judgment on a scenario without seeing the different angles in the car and any protests that are put in. The camera basically allows us to have a full 360 view of the car, frame by frame as the race goes. So, you know, if any protests do go in, we get to see every view possible of the racing scenario. In this commentary booth, we literally see just what you can see on the screen as we look at it. So it's what I thought looked like happened. That might not be the case. So we'll wait and see what happens after the race. Paul Zanetti moves up to 4th, as does McIntyre. Mick Sutton moving down the pack. So I'm trying to look at the time board and find out. It must have been through that fast left-hander, because that's where he's lost quite considerable time. Will Paul Laramie be close enough to do anything with Sutton there? I believe Laramie is actually a little bit further back down the grid. Mick Sutton, meanwhile, is looking like he's getting a nice bit of slipstream here from McIntyre. Or, here's another view of it, Jack. Has Mick Sutton been really clever there and gone, you know what, Zanetti and McIntyre are close enough now, let them go through and follow them so that I make sure I get the silver win, but I'm not holding myself up, and I get a further forward grid position for the reverse grid race.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing I can think of. If you looked at his sector times, it was only the 3rd sector that he was a little bit down, but it wasn't like it was disastrous. It was a 33 instead of a 31, which isn't really, it shouldn't have cost him 3 places, put it that way. But obviously, I think you may be right. He's been a bit smarter.
Tactical loss of time.
Yeah, a bit smarter here, and we hear Andy McEwen talk about it quite a lot on the Thursday night as well. That sort of tactical reverse grid placement as well. If you're going to be at the back for race number 1, that's a huge snap of oversteer there by Mick Sutton, a little bit heavy on the front brakes. Probably complaining about what you were complaining about earlier, Dave, and the fact that the front brakes are a little bit too big on these MX-5s. You were getting very particular about it.
Yeah, you know, yeah. I do unfortunately seem to pick up on little traits or problems with certain cars, and for me this car just lacks well, I was going to say a little bit of balance, but a lot of balance for me on the brakes alone. You know, they're running very, very big calipers on the front of these cars that, let's face it, aren't particularly that fast anyway, and they just feel very overpowered. So on a front-wheel drive car, a big set of brakes on the front is brilliant because it allows you to turn the car in on that nose and lift the back axle and get that rotation. That's not what you want from a rear-wheel drive MX-5, so you're pitching it in on the nose like we'll see Nathan do here. Look at the dip on the brakes, and then you turn it in, and it leaves the back end quite light and prone to spinning up the rear, even though these cars aren't particularly powerful. So the brakes for me could be a little bit more balanced. In saying that, in the tuning menu, for any of these drivers who are playing with the setup slightly, obviously it's a fixed setup, but there is certain elements that you can change, like the tyre pressures, the fuel, traction control, ABS. It doesn't have a brake bias valve on these cars, so you can't change whether more power is sent to front or back, but there is an overall power gauge, so you can turn down the overall power. So there might be an advantage to some drivers if they're struggling with carrying apex speed, that scrub a few percent off the total power of them brakes and actually might find themselves gaining time. Paul Laramie with a mistake there coming out of the left-right complex late on in the lap, just catching the back end there on that curb and unfortunately spinning it up and rotating him right. That's a shame, that, because I've got to admit, the way Paul Laramie was driving there, he was putting definitely for me a very good show on for a possible driver of the round vote for later on in the session. Very good drive from him so far.
Yeah, for sure. We actually forgot to talk about the prizes, really, didn't we, Dave? But of course, to give a general run through, hopefully everybody watching has sort of been watching over the past couple of weeks, and you may have an idea, but you might have got it mixed up with a Thursday night. So here it goes. If you win either championship, this is for both championships basically, silver winners will get it as well as gold winners will get it. You get a set of OBP hydraulic brake pedals, probably the best feeling brake pedals you'll get in sim racing. They're very similar, if not pretty much the same, to the mini challenge pedals that you have in real life in the actual mini challenge car. Second place, correct me on the measurements if I'm wrong, Dave or Tom, but it's a 34-inch curved AOC Gaming monitor display. It's a fantastic looking thing and really works well. We use them in the sim truck, so if anybody out there has been in the sim truck, the VRRC sim truck, and enjoyed the screen that you've been using, then by all means, it's absolutely fantastic. Curved, of course. And the third place is 2 VIP tickets to a British GT round, thanks to Motors 101. well, and with VRRC in mind. So hopefully that's everybody can sort of think about what these drivers are racing for. Speaking of racing for it, Jack McIntyre is lining up a move on Paul Zanatachi. And Dave, to be honest, I was expecting this one about 2 or 3 minutes ago. It's taken a while for McIntyre to really work up the speed to get past.
Yeah, you know what? I think that's also, to be fair, credit to Zanatachi.
Oh, for sure.
He probably hasn't really practiced a great deal stepping in for Nicky Taylor here. And this is sort of seeing that Academy MX-5 Championship really playing into it. He was definitely a contender near the front. And look at that. The slightly more inside line there on McIntyre. And I reckon there he lost, you know, maybe a tenth, 2 tenths on the brakes, but gained it all on the exit. And look at this. If he goes for a move here, what a move this would be from Zanatachi. McIntyre has to defend the inside line. Zanatachi, unfortunately, has nowhere to really show a nose there, and it's a good move by McIntyre in the end. So McIntyre is now clear to try and close the gap on Felvis, who, let's face it, has drove a very, very good race at the moment.
Yeah, I think all credit to Felvis and Zanatachi, to be honest. They're mixing it very well with these sort of alien standard drivers, haven't we? I mean, we've seen them talking about it over on the YouTube chat quite a few times. Adrian Felvis in particular, who's always very active on the YouTube chat, and we'd love to see that sort of thing. Speaking about how they top 3 realistically need to be in their class of their own, as Felvis has moved up this season into the gold category, maybe struggling to find the extra half a second that he needs to catch up with the front guys. But right here in the race right now, you wouldn't really see that much difference between them. This could be a fight for the race lead, and you wouldn't know it, Dave, because they're driving that well.
Yeah, so this for me, if McIntyre manages to get onto the back of Felvis, which looking at the lap times, I'd imagine there will be a point at which McIntyre starts to put a bit of an attack on, especially the fact McIntyre now has a little bit of slipstream as well. This is where I really want to see Felvis not give up on this position. If McIntyre shows his nose, he needs to battle it and hold his car around the outside, so then he has the inside line into the next corner. When you're in a position like this, you can't just go, you know what, I'll settle for P4. He needs to attack this position. He's in P3. Yes, he's got a faster driver behind, but this is a track that you can defend on. So he really needs to work this. And I tell you what, if he plays this well and he manages to hold off for 5 minutes, very, very fair credit that he will be in a Driver of the Day award position for me.
Yeah, he has already won Driver of the Day, I think, for the MX-5s, hasn't he? So he wouldn't mind another gaming keyboard, I'm sure, which obviously is the prize for Driver of the Day, but he leaves the door open just a touch. He can carry momentum because there is a nice wide line around this Vallelunga circuit, but Felvis, I think, may pay victim to McIntyre just getting that slipstream and a nice tight drive out of the final corner. But I think McIntyre is actually a bit like what you saw before.
Yeah, he's
earlier,
caught him in the
Dave.
wrong place.
Yeah, he's caught him just in the wrong place. I think he was trying to hold off catching him, but then as they transitioned from the right to the left, it just wasn't ideal for McIntyre. He couldn't get the car quite placed correctly, and you need to be smart. And I think these drivers, they've done a lot of testing on the circuit, but racing on it is obviously very different. And
yeah,
you know, a lot of people might think, oh, well, if you tested on it, you should know it back to front. Well, racing can be a different ball game altogether because you get different attributes on the circuit. You can get a bit of slipstream, you can get the track rubbered in, you can, in real life, you can get gravel spat onto the circuit and things like that. So it's a very different ball game. Racecraft is so important.
Yeah, definitely. And I thought McIntyre might have had a cheeky look up the inside there. And I tell you what this is doing. Felvis is defending very well, like I thought he would do, but this is bringing Paul Zanatachi onto the back of McIntyre, and like we see here, that slipstream playing a big part, and Paul Zanatachi with the double slipstream really putting McIntyre under pressure. This is a test. McIntyre is a very, very competent driver indeed, won many championships, and realistically, you know, a favourite to win the championship. But I tell you what, this is a real workout for him and testing all of his racecraft. So this will be an interesting battle for me to watch, for sure.
Yeah, he's this time gone early. I think he was holding off in the previous lap, didn't want to try and overtake Felvis at the wrong time, but obviously it didn't work out for him. So this time he's thought, stuff it, I'm going for it. And up the inside he goes, and I think he's going to hold on to it. Although Felvis is doing a very good job at holding the outside line. We saw him try and do this a little bit earlier in the race, and he did it, I think, just lost out to Jack Smith. But we're seeing him doing it to McIntyre, and I think he's actually going to manage to hold on to this, Dave. Touch wood, commentators curse aside, as long as there's no contact, it will be Carl Felvis' line, and McIntyre ends up in the kitty litter. Nikki Taylor's very excited in the YouTube chat, I assume, because Zanatachi's put his number into the mix. Felvis runs wide into the first hairpin as they cut back to the left. Felvis would have the inside. Zanatachi going for third place. Not going to be his just yet as McIntyre tries to get the cut back. Felvis holds on to a podium. Zanatachi ahead of McIntyre, but there's a punch, and that means that Zanatachi is put off. Carl Felvis, who is now in the kitty litter. McIntyre trying to take advantage and sweep round the outside. Zanatachi not covering himself in glory whatsoever there, in my opinion, Dave. And Mick Sutton looks interested, although he probably want to keep his nose clean out of this battle because he's leading the silver category and doesn't want to be caught by Nathan Blank.
That to me looked very unfortunate. That to me wasn't malicious in the slightest. I think Paul just misjudged the left-hander and ran into the back of Felvis as he tried to ease off a little bit to tuck into that left. So I think that was an unfortunate crash, but that doesn't say that it's right, obviously. Very, very unfortunate scenario there. Zanatachi was proven to be actually a very good racer there until that point. Zanatachi now is in that slipstream. Felvis, unfortunately, dropping back down to P9, but I think only fair to say we'd expect Felvis near the front of the next race for sure.
Yeah, it'll be a bit heartbreaking, but Zanatachi and McIntyre trying to push the limits of the track, that's for sure, the limits of the grip of those MX-5 tyres. McIntyre now probably safely, you could argue, into third place. Zanatachi in fourth. Mick Sutton, as I said, getting in on the mix, and Nathan Blank trying to look at the inside. And the silver category race lead is certainly going to be changed. Although, no, very well done to Nathan Blank, as he saw what he was doing. He accidentally turned around Mick Sutton. He slammed on the brakes to try and let Mick Sutton back onto the circuit. Exactly what we like to see here at VRRC. We don't like it going to the judicials afterwards. If you can settle it, you know you've done wrong, hold your hands up, let the driver back through. Unfortunately, it's meant Nathan Blank has dropped behind Simon Reed and Brad Smith, but more importantly, probably at the end of it, is that Mick Sutton still holds on to the silver lead, which Dave, he didn't deserve to lose, put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's all going to be an interesting one. This was sorry, I was slightly distracted with the fact that Simon Reed looked all over the back there of Mick Sutton, and he still very much is. Nathan Blank is also side by side with Brad Smith, almost a mirror image following down at this right hander. Nathan Blank has got the inside. And I tell you what, I'm going to say this now. Nathan Blank with the comeback drive, obviously we saw what happened at the start of the race, and he's found his way battling for P2 in silver class at the moment, with P1 in silver class, to be fair, not that much further up the road.
Yeah, no, it's a good drive all round, and as we mentioned, there is a driver of the day to think about, and realistically, it might come down to how smart these drivers are for driver of the day as well. If you are tuning in and you're thinking that, oh, who on earth is leading this race, you sort of haven't seen them whatsoever, then you're about to see them now, because he's about to cross the line to take the victory, and it is Eric Axelsson to take the checkered flag here in the MX-5 Cup. Brilliant drive by Eric. He was impervious to all pressure. Pretty much after lap one, there wasn't much of it, to be fair. Jack Smith comes home in second place after an unfortunate lap one, but he comes home in second. Mick Sutton will come across the line to take... No, he won't. He's dropping backwards on the timing screen, but Jack McIntyre rounds out the top three, so it's the three we expected, just not maybe how we expected them to get there. Zanatachi in fourth. Mick Sutton takes the silver victory and is in the top five as well. Simon Reed in sixth. Nathan Blank in seventh. Second in the silver, and Brad Smith third in the silver, eighth overall. Paul Laramie, after going stage exit right into the pit wall, will come home in ninth. Carl Felvis, very unfortunately for him in my opinion, ends up in 10th place. He'll be there for the reverse grid, but Kenny Press, John Jones and Simon Thorpe will be ahead of him, as Simon Thorpe will be on pole for race number 2. And Dave, that was dramatic, wasn't it, really? I think we've learned a lot in terms of how to race around Vallelunga, although Eric Axelsson was pretty much in blissful isolation.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say Eric Axelson's learned how to do a quali lap round Vallelunga in open air, exactly like you wanted to do, as he said, in qualifying. And I tell you what, doing a lap time at 23.853, good enough for pole as well in qualifying. So outstanding pace from Eric Axelson, and yeah, really putting his stamp on this MX-5 championship now.
We'll be able to hear more from Eric and obviously the rest of the podium sitters and Silver Victor in a couple of minutes' time. But first, we have to go to an advert. And we're back, but we don't want to hear from me and my ramblings. What we want to do is hear from Dave Marshall talking to our podium sitters.
Yes, I'll have to get through these fairly quickly before we get back to the grid for race 2. Mick Sutton will go straight down to you. P1 in silver class, and a track that to me is proven very, very difficult indeed with the amount of slipstream here. But it was a good solid P1 finish for you. It wasn't quite as easy as it should have been though, with that little tap from I believe it was Nathan Blunt going to the hairpin, but it was a good catch and managed to hold on to P1.
Yeah, it was. I made a couple of mistakes actually. The tap from Nathan was because I was over defending really. I can't blame him for that. I probably braked a little bit harder than he was expecting. He hit me up the backside. But yeah, it was nice to be up the front, racing with the gold lads, and you know, it was nice to tag on to the back of them and just watch what they were doing. Maybe I've learned something, and we'll see what happens in race 2.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing what happens in race 2 for Stu and Mick with the full reverse grid. I've got to press on and move on to the other drivers, but fantastic results so far.
Thank you very much.
I'll move forward on now. P3 driver in gold class and overall. And dear me, Jack Mack, what a track this is for racing, but I'm going to take it not for you. This is one of them that as soon as you try and get past, they just come back here in the slipstream.
That's never easy, is it? That was tough. I got caught up in the incident at the start just before the safety car, so that put me right out of position. And then it was, yeah, the amount of like difference in lap time that comes from what you actually do as a driver compared to a draft is really similar. So once you're stuck in behind drivers, it's just so tough to get ahead and then stay ahead. So yeah, it was another one of those where I think third was the best I could have done. So glad I got there.
Well, I tell you one thing, I'm looking forward to seeing how you drivers manage on this reverse grid. I think the overtaking is going to be brilliant around here.
Recovery trucks at the ready, I think.
Well, we'll move forward on our P2 driver. Well done, Jack. We'll move forward on our P2 driver, Jack Smith. A very, very unfortunate opening lap there. I'm going to have to be quick here with 2 minutes 30 left. A very unfortunate lap. Turn 3, I believe it was, just a driver across the inside of the grass, and I imagine he probably popped up on your car radar, but not really much you could have done about that.
Yeah, literally just last second, didn't even see it pop up. It was that quick, I didn't even see it pop up. But yeah, unfortunate, but made our way back through. Eric is just so quick on this track; it's unreal. So it's gonna be tough in this next reverse grid. But yeah, we'll see what we can do.
Well, looking forward to seeing it, Jack, and good luck going into race 2.
Cheers, Dave.
And move forward on our P1, and let's face it, the king of Vallelunga, I think we're going to have to call him, Eric Axelson, with yet another top qualifying lap during the race stint. And let's face it, Eric, that was a bit like a qualifying session for you. Exactly the way you wanted it to go, out in front, with no one ready to hassle you, and it was a P1. Why couldn't every race be like that?
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, I saw the unfortunate start for Jack and Jack. So yeah, not the race I was like hoping for, but still happy to win, of course.
And really quickly before you have to go, expectations for this reverse grid. You've probably not seen what the overtakes are like, but that slipstream is massive. Quick expectation.
I don't know. I'm just trying to throw it away, take it easy, and stay with Jack and Jack.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing how you do, and good luck in race 2, Eric.
Thank you, Dave.
And there we go, Jack. A little bit against the time there, I think, to get through them drivers. But I think it's fair to say a few drivers there that are a little bit disappointed with sort of the first lap incidents and feel like they hinder them. But I think, let's face it, Eric Axelsen had the outright pace anyway and looking extremely fast round here.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed it when he was talking about Jack and Jack. It sounded like a second bit sat-nav, like a knockoff TomTom, doesn't it? But it's, yeah, that's probably what a lot of people think about me and my brother. But, no, it's going to be a fantastic race too. Hopefully the recovery truck doesn't need to be wheeled out like Jack McIntyre was saying. But you never know. Yeah, exactly. You never know. Anyway, the lights are coming on. The engine notes are rising. So it's about time we focus on the race in front of us, and it's going to be the second race in the AGON by AOC MX-5 Championship, and it's underway. Carl Felvis not getting the start he was hoping for at all. Lots of wheel spin, and he's going to have to defend early on, although he's going to be swamped already by the likes of Paul Laramie and Nathan Blank, I fear. Just either side of him, hopefully 3 wide doesn't equal a big crash as Laramie's climbing all over the curbs, and he's almost spat out, but he holds on to it, not getting the run he was hoping for. And in fact, no, it's Laramie now who's going to get swamped. I think they're going to go 4 wide into the right-handers, are sharp on the brakes, and Felvis goes up the inside of everyone and goes into second place. Brilliant opportunistic move by Felvis. Thorpe in second, and Laramie, I think, no, that wasn't Laramie, it was Kenny Press who ends up in the kitty litter on the left-hand side. Smith and Axelsen still right at the back of the field, just trying to hold off and, sort of, I guess, take stock and see what happens after the first lap. Probably a wise decision with the slipstream going the way it is. And as race 1 early days went as well, as we see Nathan Blank going defensive, or was he offensive, or was he both? We're not entirely sure, but we do know that Mick Sutton is off on the inside of the circuit, and that is big news for Silver. That was the Silver Victor off already, and I think that's a turnaround. Who is it? I can't see because my screen has gone pixelated at the worst possible time, Dave.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that, I believe, was a driver that had spun. I think it was Nathan Blank who'd spun, and it just created that mass of sort of cars with nowhere to go right at the crunch point of the apex. We had 3 cars pointing the wrong way, and unfortunately, I think one of them was actually Eric Axelsen, I believe, as well. So Eric Axelsen with a very unfortunate race to start. Jack Mack, to be fair, not that much further up the grid here in P7. Jack Smith has managed to make it up through the grid to a P4 position at the moment, and I think it's fair to say Felvis, who probably got the best start out of everyone, getting up to P2, this is the last thing he'll want, and now safety car undoing all that work at the start, and bye-bye to his gap. You know, he's now back tucked in behind John Jones. Paul Laramie's right up on his rear bumper now as well. So a bit of an unfortunate start for Felvis regarding how well he progressed in that early stage in the race.
But to be fair, he didn't even get a good start off the line. It's amazing how quickly motorsport can change, isn't it? Because he was bogged down the line. I don't know whether it was wheel spin or just maybe bogged in first or something like that. I'm not sure. It looked like he was going to swamp and maybe go back all the way down into maybe 8th or 9th. But then, obviously, everybody runs wide into T3, and Paul Laramie obviously squiggles out of his way, and all of a sudden he's up into 2nd place, which is obviously brilliant for him. Like you mentioned, the safety car's not done him too many favours. But, yeah, he'll be hoping that with the likes of Laramie as a buffer in between himself and Smith, maybe he can get a lap or 2 still in that 2nd place to attack John Jones, put him in between as well. The safety car lights are off. It will be in this lap. I'm not entirely sure when they're allowed to go, Dave. I don't know if you can reveal any secrets. Is it until the start-finish line?
So it's basically whenever now the lead car decides to go, he can go. But once he commits to that throttle,
it is at the start.
He has to go. But there is no overtaking before the start-finish line. So right. That's why you can see all the drivers are really packed up. And even if one driver is on top of the other one, they will have to sit behind that driver until they get to the start-finish line. So John Jones has probably not done too many of these, to be fair, so this is probably a bit of a difficult start for him. He's leaving it very, very late, and he will have to go at some point before the line. When will he go? It's really grouped up here. He's leaving at the last minute. Will he go on the line? In fact, there you go. Went on the line itself. Kyle Felvis probably didn't actually read that the best there, and it's actually Jack Smith who's already overtaken Paul Laramie down in the right hand. Has he got the overlap? Paul Laramie luckily managing to get in just behind Jack Smith and not have that dreaded overlap that meant he couldn't turn into the apex, and somehow Jack Smith has had the overspeed to pass Felvis down to that right-hander after being behind Laramie. So
it's Smith's in the race lead now, actually, because John Jones has dropped down into third already. So Smith has basically, in turns 3 and 3.5, gone from 4th to 1st place. And Jack Smith leads this race.
How did he do that?
I'm not entirely sure. I'm guessing Jones ran wide a little, but to be fair, I thought Jones played it very well on the restart, although he's not playing it so well here, and he gets a little bit snappy. He holds it, and I think he was slightly lucky that Laramie was running so wide. This could be a little bit messy. Davis, Eric Axelson's on the outside, a couple of drivers bunting into the backside, and that is unfortunate, but everybody just about holds on to it. McIntyre, again, sort of stuck.
Oh, there's a spin in the background.
In the background is Nathan Blank and Brad Smith. I think Nathan Blank got away with it, but Brad, I'm not sure how he was involved. He just lost the position to Simon Thorpe. But Brad Smith now behind Mick Sutton, so all of a sudden the top 3 in the Silver Championship and now the bottom 3 in the entire race. So watch how they come through the field. That's going to be very important in the next 15 minutes. Jack McIntyre, Eric Axelsson then not had the start that Jack Smith has had, and they'll be very conscious of it. Smith as well in the championship, he's got a 3-point lead. So they need to get up the order as quickly as possible. They won't be catching Smith, I don't imagine. But what they can do is have damage limitation on the reverse grid race as Zanetachi gets past John Jones.
Yes, Zanetachi now up into P3 in gold and P3 overall, which actually for me is probably quite a crucial thing there. He's managed to get in front of John Jones and Paul Laramie there. So actually pretty substantial move there, needless to say. Jack McKee battling pretty hard with Eric Axelsson, but I think by the body language of McIntyre, he's almost wanting Eric to get ahead so he can follow him through. But Simon Reed is looking all over the back of McIntyre, and McIntyre might lose a position here if he's not careful.
Both of these drivers need to be a little bit more sensible, unless they've got 2 silver drivers to get through before they even catch Zanetachi, don't they? They would be much better at trying to work together. But of course, Simon Reed is a gold class driver as well. Simon Thorpe, unfortunately, in the Smart 5 car has had a bit of a turnaround, makes contact with the solid tyre wall as well, and hopefully that won't damage his car too much. Paul Laramie is very much in the way. John Jones is very much in the way, but he comes back on safely, luckily, as everybody just about avoids him. Axelsson has to now put in that grit that we were talking about that he developed last week and make sure he gets the move done.
Look
but he's
at
left
this.
the door open for McIntyre. Whoever gets the slipstream against Laramie now is going to come out the victor as they go towards the first part of this lap. 13 minutes to go. Zanetachi is away with the fairies in terms of this little battle, but Axelsson has now got his nose ahead of Laramie, who just goes across the curbing on the right-hand side, loses out to Axelsson, maybe loses out to McIntyre. McIntyre on the outside, how's this going to play out? Axelsson holds on to the position, McIntyre gets the move done around the outside, Paul Laramie blends into 6th in between McIntyre and Simon Reed, and that's probably, Dave, about as well as it could have gone for all those drivers.
You know what? I think that was actually smart driving by Paul Laramie. I think he was in that straight. He didn't want to leave too much time on the table there, but he knew he had to back out of that break early to let the 2 gold drivers get through and almost cause damage limitation by himself. Watch. I think he's going to brake again, let Simon Reed maybe get up his left-hand side. No, he's actually put a little bit of a squeeze on for Simon Reed. So actually he's battling for this position. And I tell you what, fair play Paul Laramie, up in P6 overall, quite a considerable distance ahead of John Jones there as well. So Paul Laramie there must have been contact between him and Simon Reed. So actually Paul Laramie battling fairly hard here, and Simon Reed still stuck behind Paul Laramie with John Jones there in P8. So John Jones has managed to recover after his excursion in the gravel. Paul Laramie, look, has managed to almost tuck in behind Sam Reed, but he hasn't. He's side by side, so this is not exactly going Simon Reed's way, I wouldn't have said so far.
Difficult to say how this one's going to play out. What we were hoping, obviously, is the fact that they choose not to make any more contact. There's a little bit of rubbing, but as the cars start to transfer their weight left to right as they go through the chicane and into the braking zone, we don't want any more contact because it will become very much a bad situation for both drivers. Luckily, they didn't. Simon Reed ends up slotting into 6th. Paul Laramie, still leading the silver category, is in 7th. John Jones, he'll probably be fairly confident about being quicker than. But then Nathan Blank in behind them, Mick Sutton and Brad Smith are all drivers that are going to worry these leading silvers currently. And I'm talking about the silver championship as well. Brad Smith is leading it by...
Punt.
Sorry. Oh, Laramie gets a snap, and I
He
think
saved it.
Yeah, he has saved it, but is he going to come back on the circuit safely? Just about holds on to the holds on to the circuit as it looks like Laramie was going to hit him up the inside then. But Nathan Blank and Mick Sutton have gotten their way through. Brad Smith still labouring in 11th place. And if we're talking championship, I'll finish my point, Dave. Mick Sutton leading the Silver Championship. Very important there, ahead of Brad Smith. But they're only separated by 1 point. Nathan Blank is 20 points behind Mick Sutton. He really needs to win this race as we're going into the second half of this championship. Every point counts now, especially for Nathan Blank. Sutton and Smith will probably go down to the wire, but Blank is the one who's playing catch-up.
Yeah, he is indeed, but Nathan Blank currently is the one who is P1 in the class in silver. So Nathan Blank doing a good job, and it's actually Paul Laramie who's starting to look all over the back of Mick Sutton here. So Paul Laramie seems like he's got pace in the car, he's just lacking a little bit of that, maybe the finesse to keep them laps consistent there. But he will be under Mick Sutton's rear bumper here. And actually, I tell you what, look at this front part. Eric Axelson and McIntyre closed right under the back of Paul Zanetechi now. So that didn't take very long really at all. Axelson still ahead of McIntyre, but this is probably a case of McIntyre wants to just follow Axelson through here and manage to get that gap. So will Axelson manage to find a move that makes it, first of all, a clean move past Zanetechi, but also not cost him too much time, that McIntyre gaps him and gets his nose up the inside?
Smith is running away with it like Axelson did in the first race, isn't he? Quite impressively. And Felvers, again, quite impressively, is in a bit of a whirl of his own as well. 2 seconds ahead of the battle we're seeing now. And in fact, you just saw Felvers zoom through your picture in the purple car. Here comes Axelson, again, trying to get onto that podium. Bottom step of the podium this is fighting for. Of course, Zanetechi covering for Nicky Taylor, if you're wondering if we just got the timing tower wrong and you've tuned in late. Nicky Taylor is on holiday. Zanetechi will be scoring half points for him. But every point counts in the championship at the end of the day. Axelson has got the move done and dusted really early on. McIntyre slides up the inside, and I don't think Zanetechi's really got an answer for that one. We saw
Watch for the exit. Here we go, in the slipstream. And this could be on, you know, to go side by side, but I don't think Paul is actually going to battle this position too hard. I think that's probably the big key here. McIntyre has now got ahead, and I don't think Zanetechi will really feel like he can just send one now up the inside into this hairpin.
Yeah, realistically, obviously, Zanetechi's probably thinking back to that race 1 and that incident with Kyle, isn't it? It's not his championship to run. It's not his championship to ruin, potentially, either. And obviously, he'll probably feel pretty bad about that incident with Kyle. I don't think it was malicious. I think you called it right,
no.
It absolutely wasn't malicious, and that's why we're seeing him learn from the mistakes, shall we say. Even Tom O'Farrell on the broadcast said, you know, flowing through that right-hander, some people brake, some people just lift early and coast through it. So it's just a case of personal line. And obviously, unfortunately, Paul got it wrong when he was following Kyle, but it was all so close, it was hard to judge. So it's good that Kyle is getting his second chance, per se. He's got the 2 quickest drivers on the circuit now chasing after him, though, which obviously is not going to feel too great for the next 7.5 minutes, but he's driving a brilliant drive. And you mentioned it earlier on, Dave, probably in line for driver of the day. Realistically, the only reason why he didn't finish further up in the first race is nothing out of his control. So he's probably putting his hat in the ring, put it that way.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, I think there's a few drivers that could be in the running for me for driver of the day here. I think you can't take Eric Axelson's name off that. He has been absolutely flawless here, other than getting caught up in other people's incident. He got tapped round there at the hairpin, nothing really to do with him, and his pace here has just been absolutely stellar. Jack Smith, as you've just said, got tapped round and probably would have battled Axelson a little bit harder had he not had that incident at the start of the race. And Felvis as well, with that tap round, was running so well till then, and currently in P2 and managed to put on a great drive to pull himself back through. Regarding the silver drivers on the grid, Nathan Blank has done a great job in my mind. You know, managed to do a great recovery drive after that horrendous turn 3 incident, pulling his way back up through the grid, and now is currently P1 in silver in race 2. So actually, Nathan Blank is also a very strong contender for driver of the day.
Yeah, and he showed really good sportsmanship when he turned around Mick Sutton and then slammed the anchors on, didn't he? Sacrificing 2 positions just to make sure that Mick got his position that he deserved, which is obviously winning the silver category in race 1.
Yeah.
So you're right, Nathan Blank has got to be right up there in my opinion. Carl Felvis has been caught within a lap, Dave. I said it was going to be a long 7.5 minutes. It was a short 1.5 minutes until he started getting the breath of Eric right on his backside. And it's going to be tough now, isn't it, for Carl? He's going to fight hard. We've seen him defend. We've seen him be aggressive, really well driven as well in race number 1. He's going to be hoping to keep up that momentum. Speaking of momentum, Axelson's just lost a little bit because he went into the gravel and a little bit squiggly under braking as well. Managed to hold it and aim into the apex, which was, well, he hasn't lost any time, put it that way. But again, Kyle showing that he knows where to put the car. Very mature drive, really. He might make a mistake here or there, but he's learning an awful lot on driving around these people who are very, very good and experienced sim racing drivers, aren't they? And Axelson is actually just been fended off by Felvis there, and McIntyre has seen that, and there's an opportunity for McIntyre. We might see that Felvis actually gets away with this one into T3 because Axelson's under pressure.
So this is almost a role reversal of race 1. We saw McIntyre all over the back of Felvis, then brought Paul Zanetechi right into the mix. And now we're seeing the 2 fastest drivers on the grid. We've got Eric Axelson battling all over the back of Felvis. Yet again, he's managed to hold his own and defend it against Axelson. And it's brought McIntyre right into the picture to then also battle Axelson for the same P3. So this is going to be interesting. Axelson versus McIntyre with Felvis just ahead. And it looks to me like Felvis has got a bit between his teeth here. He's going, you know what, boys? I'm in P2 this time. You're going to have to fight me hard to get through.
Yeah, you know what I love as well, Dave, because I sort of love the psychology of racing as well, and it really tells sort of a good racing driver when you don't have to. I'm about to eat my words here, as I think Eric Axelson might have the opportunity as Felvis runs a little wide, and Felvis is later on the brakes than Axelson.
Oh, good drive by Felvis.
Yeah, he's going to be in a little bit of trouble here if he just comes back on and they're still side by side through the left-hander. You have to be brave, as you mentioned earlier, to go too wide too into the later part of this circuit. I'll get my point out now, Dave. What I quite liked about it was the fact that obviously Felvis made Axelson drop back into McIntyre's, where it's easy for a driver, if you would say in Felvis's position, to then still defend, whereas it's needless to defend through certain corners. And he actually took the racing line, so he was aware of the situation that was at hand. He was aware that because Axelson had dropped off, that McIntyre would be attacking him, which meant he didn't have to defend, whereas now he'll know that McIntyre's nowhere near, so he has to defend. And it's all about that situational awareness, and it basically gets put under racecraft as an arch. But that's exactly what we're seeing Felvis really grow into here. And again, putting his car in the middle of the circuit, not having to overly defend towards the inside and white line it. He's just putting his car where Axelson doesn't want him to be.
Yeah, and look at this. Felvis is defending this with everything he can, but unfortunately Axelson just with that straight line speed there on Felvis. But Felvis, fair play, it's just kept his nose up the inside. This is nearly 3 wide going down towards the hairpin, and Felvis here needs to keep his car around the outside going down towards the hairpin, but Axelson has managed to get through. Will Felvis dive it? Will Felvis dive it? He hasn't. McIntyre is looking round the outside. Felvis is going to have to try and make his car as wide as possible. And look who's following up as well. Paul Zanetechi is looking at all this going, you know what? There's a chance for me to get involved in all of this now.
Yeah, and Felvis is probably looking at his rearview mirrors and seeing one car back and having a bit of a panic attack, isn't he? He feels like there's a little bit of deja vu going on here. But I'm sure, obviously, it won't happen again. But it did feel a little bit inevitable, didn't it, Dave? With the circuit in the nature that it is, that Felvis wasn't able to hold on. But I mean, he did it for 6 minutes or so, didn't he? It's a fair, impressive job. He's given a flash to the lights here, but I think McIntyre is going to get the job done and dusted here as well. We saw this in the previous race, in race number 1, how Felvis held around the outside, and he's actually got back into the slipstream. And I think he might have just got a bit of overspeed on McIntyre into the braking zone, goes up the inside, and Felvis goes into P3 yet again. And again, that's the problem, isn't it, with this circuit, with the amount of slipstreaming available to these drivers. McIntyre obviously overtakes one, gets re-overtaken, but he knows then he has an opportunity to get back up the inside just like Axelson did before.
Yeah, this is fantastic racing. This is the racing of a driver who is like absolutely determined not to let that move stick of the driver who's behind. McIntyre knows he's got a little bit of pace on Felvis here, but there's just not a lot he can do about it. Felvis puts his weight in that slipstream, and actually, here we go. McIntyre just, oh no, Look at that, he managed to get the drive out the corner, but then lost it on the straight afterwards. Felvis has kept it tight, and I tell you what, all of this fight is just bringing Zanetechi closer and closer to the back of these two, and if anything, Felvis will know if Zanetechi gets on the back of McIntyre here, it can only help him. So this is very, very clever driving at the moment. And unfortunately, Paul Laramie with a spin going through the fast left-right, and now has got John Jones to battle with. Meanwhile, back up at the front, McIntyre looks like he's got the job done, but this happened last time. Felvis will be tucked in to that slipstream, but this time McIntyre will be aware that Felvis is looking for that inside line. Felvis has gone wide left. Will he try and brave it around the outside and get that slipstream? I think he is, but I think he's scrubbed a little too much speed off there, and there's McIntyre through. That might be a hard job now for Felvis to gain that advantage back and get up the inside, but what a battle that was.
On to the last lap then, is Smith still leading, and I think he's a couple, well no, he's not going to be near finishing just yet. He's only a couple of corners ahead of these guys as they battle it out still. Felvis versus Zanetechi going through the final couple of hairpins for the final time as well. Axelson very truly in second place, and McIntyre, you could argue, probably truly in third now as Smith is about to round out the last corner. A very dominant drive after carving through the field, obviously surviving all the safety car antics. Unlike race one, he'll probably think that was well deserved, and we all do as well, to be fair. Jack Smith takes the race victory here, race number 2 at Vallelunga. Eric Axelson finishes a second place. Obviously won in race number 1 and pole position. It's been a good night for him. McIntyre finally leaked the door open just enough to get ahead of Kyle Felvis and take the bottom step of the podium. But as to be said, Kyle did an amazing job in that last 7.5 minutes. Paul Zanetechi will take half points for Nicky Taylor, but a good amount of half points, it has to be said. Simon Reed finishes at the back of the gold category in 6th position. Nathan Blank wins the silver. That will be a good on his account, especially in the championship. Mick Sutton in 2nd in the silver, 8th overall. Brad Smith 3rd in the silver, 9th overall. Paul Laramie 10th, John Jones in 11th. And Simon Thorpe about to bring up the rear of the field as Kenny Press ended up DNFing. Right, Dave, there was a lot to dissect in that last couple of laps, wasn't it? It was probably the podium we would expect at the beginning of the night, but it very nearly caused an upset.
Yeah, I think there was a fair few upsets, I think, tonight. But I tell you what, the track didn't disappoint on that slipstream action. It was almost a little bit, almost Monza-esque, dare I say, Jack. You know, that slipstream playing such a big part in the racing. And I think it just showed McIntyre, who, let's face it, is such a strong driver, a real workout tonight against the likes of Zanetechi and Felvis, who will hold them absolutely true and basically with nowhere past.
Yeah, and of course we need to announce the driver of the round just before we go into the interviews, Dave. Now,
yeah,
a strong, oh my days, McIntyre getting up to his antics as per usual. A strong contender was obviously Carl Felvis, but the only thing that's pretty much swayed it, I think, in my opinion, Dave, is the fact that obviously we've given Felvis it already, haven't we? In round number 1, he doesn't need another gaming keyboard, and Nathan Blank has probably had the round that we've been waiting for him to have. He's been fantastic. He's been the first race, there was a little bit of contact that needs to go through traditional, but it didn't look like his fault. After that, he recovered really well, and obviously he's taken home a silver victory there as well to recover some points. So to me, as well as I believe you and the other adjudicators, Nathan Blank for driver of the day is a pretty good shout.
Yeah, and you know what, not to take it away from just because Felvis had already had
Obviously
round 1. For me, Blank tonight really showed a little bit of class. You know, he has the pace. He's proved it in qualifying and practice. Very unlucky in turn 3, where it looked like he got put across the grass. But what a drive it was to pull his way back through the grid, and then also that race to managing to bring home a win in the class as well. So fantastic drive from Nathan.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I wasn't meaning to take anything away, that's for sure. It's just I was putting him to a high standard because, as I said, Kyle was up there as well.
Definitely.
Anyway, we got a few driver interviews to crack through. Dave, of course, our podium sitters as well as driver of the day, and our silver Victor, who also is the driver of the day as well. So take it away.
Yeah, we will do. So first of all, we will go down to Nathan Blank, top of silver class, and also our driver of the day award. Nathan, it was a difficult night, but to be fair, your pace was definitely there. Qualifying as well was really strong. A race one that you maybe didn't think started out well, but you crawled your way back through, and then a fantastic race 2 finish. Not a bad night all in all.
Yeah, you're right, Dave. All in all, not a bad night. Not quite sure what happened into the, about the third, the double apex in the first race.
Yeah.
I'll have a look at that. But yeah, a few incidents in front of me, a few overtakes. Really pleased with the result in the end from where I rejoined.
Yeah.
They were full of action, both races, I'm sure, for the stream. But yeah, brilliant. Driver of the day as well. Wow, I didn't expect that.
Yeah, I mean, it was just such a calculated drive, just picking your way back through the grid. As you say, it takes that racecraft element to see them incidents up ahead and make sure you're not collected in that. And it was a fantastic recovery drive by yourself, as well as in race 2 with that victory as well. So a well-deserved Driver of the Day award from us, Nathan, and well done. And hopefully this is the start of the momentum that will allow you to close that gap in the championship as well.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. That'd be great.
I will move forward onto our P3 driver overall, Jack Mack. I mean, it must be something about this track. It was about as difficult as it could have possibly been for you out there at night.
Yeah, it just doesn't go your way sometimes. Like, there was, again, a lot of occasions there where I was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and then to be brutally honest, I was just lacking the pace. I think I just wasn't on the pace of track and Eric in front, so it was, it was kind of hoping for some chaos and hoping that I would come out on top, but yeah, it doesn't always go that way.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the track's definitely proved it's, a very, very, for me, very good race track. But it almost reminds me, I was saying to Jack in the comms box, a little bit of Monza where, you can have the pace on this track, but actually out on track, that slipstream plays such a big part round here that you saw the likes of Zanetechi, Felvis, you said before, maybe a little bit off the pace that you were on, but because of the slipstream meant it was extremely hard to make them passes actually stick.
Yeah, and then as soon as someone does get past, like there was the battle with, I think, me, Eric, and Kyle at the end there. As soon as Eric got clear of Kyle, it was like he's gone straight away. I think just with the pace that Eric had, so it was, it's just tough. One of those nights. I think the horrendous attempt at the 360 kind of summed up my night at the end there.
Well, if that's what it actually was, we sort of missed it, but we caught the tail end, which was probably made it look worse than it actually was, Jack. So, a tough night, but hopefully we'll see you return to your form, should we say, in the next round out. So, good luck going forward into Red Bull Ring.
Cheers, thank you.
Move forward on our P2 driver, Eric. It was I'm not going to say a slow start in race 2, but it just seemed like you couldn't manage to make them moves like Jack Smith there. And then I believe you got turned round going out of the hairpin, and then the safety car was obviously called. So probably not the race 2 that you want, but what a recovery it was back to P2.
Yeah, the start wasn't great. I mean, it's I tried to just be patient.
Yeah.
But then I got caught in the hairpin, as you said.
Yeah.
And then I just tried to recover,
Yeah, I mean, I've got to quickly ask you, regarding the racetrack, for us, as a spectacle, it was fantastic. You out there, though, I take it was a pretty difficult track to actually make them overtake stick.
Yeah, especially on Kyle in the end. He didn't make it easy. And with Jack just right behind, a little stressful, but yeah, a little luck maybe, and yeah, I'm happy with P2.
Well, it's been a fantastic effort by yourself tonight, Eric, and a good championship points haul as well, with a P1 and 2, and I believe a few fastest laps in there and qualifying. So, I mean, I think it's fair to say a little bit of the king of Vallelunga. So, well done, Eric, and let's see what you can do at Red Bull.
Thank you, Dave.
I'll move forward on our P1 finisher, Jack Smith. Probably a bit of a sigh of relief there. Once you managed to clear all the other cars, it was back to almost regime for yourself. Out in front, open track in front, not much behind you, and just head down and put them quali laps in.
Yeah, basically. Quite a lucky one, to be fair, because I'm 100% certain that if Eric didn't get spun round at the start of that race, he could have easily won that. So Yeah, bit of a sigh of relief, like you said. So yeah, just happy. He was non-stop pushing though the entire race. I had no idea how much damage Eric had, and I wanted to go for that fastest lap point just to cover that off. So yeah, it was non-stop pushing for the whole race.
Yeah, I mean, how much now we're past that sort of halfway stage in the championship? How much does this play on your mind? The fact that Eric's starting to show himself as a real contender now, and really, fair to say, getting to grips with his car. Does that change your mindset going into these last 2 rounds?
Not really, to be fair. I think it's making me more excited. If anything, we'd like to see, really competitive front of the field. So it's going to be good. It's just a shame he didn't show this sort of form before these last few rounds. So, but yeah, for sure, the last few rounds are going to be mega for the stream. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Well, looking forward to it indeed, Jack. Well done tonight on a good points haul, and looking forward to seeing what you can do next round.
Cheers, guys.
And there we go, Jack. All the drivers interviewed. Nathan Blank very, very happy with his Driver of the Day award. And I tell you what, the championship is shaping up that it's closing up nicely here in both gold and silver class. Look at that, Jack Smith and Mick Sutton both at the top of their own field on 107 points. Eric Axelsen starting to close the gap on Jack Mack there in P2 and P3. So, as I said, this battle is starting to shape up that it's going to come down to the last round, I get the feeling.
Yeah, it's quite nice to see Eric Axelsen really push forward, isn't it? And get involved. And I think it was Jack Smith who was just saying that he's looking forward to getting the battle on with him as well. He was saying that it was a shame that he didn't get the form early on in the championship. But to be honest, I think he'll be quite grateful because he's right there now, isn't he? He's right there. If he did have this sort of form, then it would be a one-horse race. No, I'm kidding. It wouldn't be a one-horse race. McIntyre and Smith are far too good to let that happen. But it will be very interesting, put it that way. If we look at the silver category as well, you mentioned it, Mick Sutton on 107 points, just like Jack Smith. But Brad Smith is... So Mick Sutton is on 107 points, and Brad Smith is on 104, so it's even closer in that silver. But Nathan Black clawing back a couple of those points in the last race as well, and obviously getting Driver of the Day shows he deserved it, I suppose, because he has come into the mix quite strong here. Paul Laramie, Simon Thorpe, John Jones and Kenny Press round out the silver category, but it's all shaping up that the last 2 rounds of the Red Bull Ring and then the Virginia full course as well is shaping up to be a real sort of classic, and we've seen some classic finales through the years, Dave.
Yeah, and I tell you what, that Virginia Raceway full course at the end of the season, that for me is really going to be the one. It's a little bit like a grown-up Vallelunga, a real roller coaster of a track with a lot of gradient and a lot of slipstream opportunity there for really good overtakes. Red Bull Ring next week, that's going to be a really interesting one because the straights aren't that long on it and it's the short track, so it's going to be really interesting qualifying. I think it's going to be particularly close.
Yeah, but we obviously have to look a little bit further forward. There we go. There is the graphic to remind you of the Red Bull Ring and National Circuit. We're not going to full F1, so that means probably be a little bit more opportunity for a little bit of a couple more laps and obviously exciting overtaking as well. We're looking forward to that one. And on Thursday, this Thursday coming, of course, if you've been keeping up to date with VRRC, then you'll know the Touring Car Trophy has been heating up. Well, we have round 4 at Thruxton on Thursday, 7:30. It essentially runs in the same format that you've watched tonight. You can join myself and Andy McEwen in the commentary box for all the action on that one, and that is heating up as well. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that one develops. Right, a little bit further forward, last couple of things. What's going on in VRRC? Here we go. If you're a casual gamer, casual racer, and you like to be involved on maybe Forza Horizon 5, maybe you don't have the full PC setup just yet, you maybe have just the Xbox and you enjoy running around on Forza Horizon, well, VRRC is a fantastic community for those sort of things as well. We have club cruises and events, and if you just want to chat about maybe some of the stuff that you've been up to or get involved with some of the online things, then you can find that all in our Discord as well. The same, of course, you've got the championships like the ones you're watching tonight, the MX-5, and of course the Touring Car Trophy. We have time attacks, where you basically get on and put a time in any time you want, and fun races, which I believe is a Porsche this Sunday. Dave, I'm not entirely sure which track it is though.
Yeah, it's a Cayman GT4 car, so it's a little bit of a lively one. I don't know whether you're familiar with the car, Jack, but they're a bit what's the best way to say that? They've got the best traits and the worst traits of 911s. Sometimes feels a little bit vague on the front, other times it's got brilliant turning. So yeah, a very difficult car, but a very rewarding car when you do hook it up, and it sounds absolutely fantastic as well. So a brilliant opportunity for any drivers who are thinking, you know, I want to see where I sort of line up in compared to some of these drivers that I'm watching on the stream, or just to get involved in VRRC. Jump in, it's free to join and get involved, and also just make sure you jump on the Discord and just have a bit of conversation with the drivers on here. And you know, there's always motorsport chat or car group forums or anything like that, so it's not just all about the racing itself. So yeah, make sure you get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you do want to get in racing, a set of course of Competizione and Dirt Rally 2.0 as well. We have stages running throughout the week. So if you're interested in any of those sort of sims, then by all means, VRRC Discord is the place you want to be. Right, time to finish it up, Dave, I reckon. And it's been a fantastic night of racing here at Vallelunga. I'm very much hoping that we come back here one day. I'm sure you'll be pushing for that one. And I suppose all we have to do is get a final couple of words from you about this evening.
Yeah, I mean, for me, a small track with a lot of action. I think that's fair to say. I think provided great action and almost that uncertainty of what was actually going to happen, because that slipstream effect was absolutely amazing. So looking forward to seeing more tracks that bring that element into it, especially in these MX-5s.
Yeah, and I'm sure the Red Bull Ring will be equally exciting. You know, big things come in small packages and all that, don't they? So very much looking forward to it. Right. Thank you very much for watching. If you have been watching and you've commented, thank you. If you've subscribed, thank you. If you've liked, thank you. If you sat there in silence judging the racers and us commentators, well, still thank you. My name's been Jack Oliphant. It's been a pleasure being your host this evening. I've been joined by Dave Marshall in the commentary box and, of course, Tom O'Farrell on the broadcast as well, doing a superb job. We'll see you on Thursday for the Maximum Networks Touring Car Trophy. See you then.
Woo!